what that means, and some say, oh, that means isolationism. No, it means mind our own business. Don't impose our will on other people. And it would also translate into bringing all the troops on, not only the Middle East, but Germany and Japan and the founders believed in that, and in recent history, even in the early part of the 20th century, there was strong movements trying to keep us out of war. And now it is so sad for us now, for both parties to accept this idea of having preventive war that aren't even declared by the Congress. This is devastating. It leads to this war mentality where no longer do we respect civilian courts, and it's permissible to have secret courts, military courts that we don't know where they are, and they don't have constitutional rights, they don't have the right of habeas corpus. This is what is existing today because they say, oh yes, we're in a war. We're in a war against terrorism. And therefore, under war conditions, we can do this. This is very, very dangerous. The Director of Intelligence, Blair, the other day, a couple weeks ago, was in a hearing, and the subject came up about what was our position on assassinations. And he explained to them that, yes, they had a position that they can assassinate. Only the bad guys, though. And it came out very clearly that we have now openly stated, even though they've been doing this in the past, openly stated that the American government has a policy of assassinating even American citizens. Without trial, but they have one way of determining which ones. If anybody is a threat. If anybody is deemed a threat by some unknown individual in the administration, that he can be put on the list, and there's 3 or 4 on the list. But you know, they probably are some very bad people out there. But what's the matter with the courts? Why in the world would we ever give up the rights of our courts? The principle of habeas corpus has been around since 1215, and it has survived rather well. It took a long time to be established. The founders understood this, and it was a principle of natural law, and it influenced our Constitution. And now we're saying that we don't have to follow that under certain circumstances. Every time they say that, well, we do this only with terrorists, these are the bad guys, you've got to treat these people this way, they don't deserve this, you have to substitute a word. They're suspects. Yes, they're suspects, and they may well be bad, but you don't sacrifice a whole system just to get rid of one person quickly. What are they afraid of? Why don't they just, if they're bad people? We have had already 300 and some individuals tried in civilian courts that have been charged with criminal acts that they call terrorism, and they've been convicted and put in prison. But all of a sudden now they want to institutionalize this. Along with this, we have become, in the other parts of the world, we have become a nation known as a nation of torture. This is not the image that I want to see for our country, and we don't need it. That's not the image of America. It's not the image of our Constitution. We need to reverse it. You know, those who charge us with saying that we're isolationists, that we don't, we want to isolate ourselves from the world. That's the last thing what this policy is all about. Matter of fact, it's a much better way of intermingling with the world. And that is that if you don't fight with people, you don't tell other people how to live and what to do. You know, we have 2 choices that we give other countries. We go to them and then we say, well, we want you to do this. And they say, well, okay, what's in it for us? Oh, we'll give you money. And then they say, all right, we go to somebody else. We want you to do this. What is in for us? Well, we don't want your money. We're not going to do it. Well, one group gets money, the other group gets bombed. Why don't we just give them friendship and trade? That's what we need. view is, well, no, these are terrible, terrible people. I mean, just think how horrible they are. Yeah, but we dealt with the Chinese communists and the Soviet communists, and there was a time, you know, that our own government worked with Saddam Hussein and Osama bin Laden, and all of a sudden it's reversed. That to me is the most annoying thing, how they can take American taxpayers' money and support these thugs, then turn around and make a world war out of trying to kill them. Yeah. Sanctions aren't worth it. Look how long we've had sanctions on Cuba. It's time we were allowed to go visit Cuba. That would make my rice farmers very happy in Texas. They could sell rice to Cuba once again. They haven't been allowed to do it for 40-some years. No, trade is much better. Just think of the results of what happened when we had to leave Vietnam and lose that war. We were fighting over there, I was told, and sort of fell into the trap. I was in the service in the 60s thinking, oh yes, there's going to be the domino effect and the communists will take over the world if we don't stop them. Well, we did stop them, but they didn't take over the world. Guess what took over the world? A more westernized situation in the Far East. China now is capitalistic. They're our banker. The Vietnamese are very capitalistic minded, and we invest money over there and we trade with them. So just think of what was achieved in peace with Vietnam compared to what was lost in war with Vietnam. It makes no sense at all. Korea was started when I was in high school, and we're still there, but it wasn't a war, it was a police action. But lots of people die, and a lot of money is wasted, and it's perpetuated, and it doesn't come up with good results. So there is room in this revolution that is occurring that we make it clear that when we have our say, we're going to have a different foreign policy, and one that will protect America's liberties as well as our safety. Yeah. Domestically, our civil liberties are under steady attack. Last week, I guess you read that the Patriot Act was extended. It should have never been passed. It should never have been extended last week. No doubt. But there are certain things that we have done even before the influence of the wars overseas and the so-called terrorist attack. The thing is, the other war that's been going on for a long time, which has been a terrible war against our liberties, always well-intended, because the government is the only one that knows what is best for you, what you should put in your mouth and put in your lungs. This war on drugs has been a disaster. I marvel at the hysteria in Washington about not being allowed to raise hemp. It really fascinates me. Oh, well, we made that illegal when we went after those people who were smoking marijuana, so we had to throw in the hemp as well. But, you know, legalizing hemp, I have a bill on that. I can't get anybody to pay any attention to it. And it's, you know, unbelievable that happens. And, you know, not too long ago, a couple years ago, somebody asked me to introduce a bill that would make sure that you could have ready access to raw milk. Yeah. And I thought, well, who would really care about that, because I wasn't drinking raw milk. But I said, no, I'll introduce the bill. What the heck? Why shouldn't you have freedom of choice? You should have a right to drink raw milk. Know when we're winning at home on our civil liberties when you can grow hemp and drink raw milk.